Awesome. Now we are live. Hey, everybody, welcome. We are going to be taking just a couple minutes here with setting up, and we'll typically give this about 5 minutes for everybody to join. And once everyone's joined, we will jump into the presentation today. I'm joined by Jenny, our Director of Program Development, and Essie, our Director of Admissions. We're going to be going through our presentation today and teaching you a little bit about how to go from a nursing career to a non-clinical career. So lots of good stuff packed into today's workshop. We are excited to have you here. And yeah, before we jump right in, we'll give it just a couple minutes for everyone to get here. But in the meantime, if Jenny, you can start us off with a quick intro about yourself, then Essie, if you want to do a quick intro, and then I will, around 6:05, I will jump into my piece, introduce myself, my story, and a little bit about MatchDay.
Thanks, Rami. So, a little bit about me. You might have caught my headshot around LinkedIn or elsewhere for this webinar, but I've been with MatchDay for about a year now. In addition to program development, I'm one of the career coaches. I've got a background in actually scaling nursing programs in higher ed and scaling health tech startups, healthcare companies with my recruiting background. So have really enjoyed the pivot to reverse recruiting is what I call it as a career coach, and just really excited to dive into some job search tactics in making that pivot from nursing.
My name is
Awesome.
Essie. There are probably some people that I have already been able to connect with, but obviously, if it's the first time, typically the first face when who you see when just coming onto a conversation about what we do, who we are. But I've been in healthcare for probably a decade by now, working alongside with clinicians in both patient-facing as well as sort of non-clinical healthcare settings. So I've had hundreds of conversations with nurses and also other healthcare professionals, and sort of understand the front and the back of difficulties of the system as well as the market. And so I'll kind of pop in later on too again on if it makes sense for us to connect potentially, but that's a little bit about me.
Awesome. Thank you, Essie. Thank you, Jenny. Um, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here, and then I will talk a little bit about my story, how I got here, how we got to starting MatchDay. So let me know if this actually, if you guys can see this, maybe Jenny or
Yeah, looks
Essie
good.
can give me the heads up. Awesome. So this is a picture of me from residency. Was a lot younger, a lot less, uh, aged a lot less, and it was I believe this is my intern year. So for me, my story started like many of you, somewhere around 18 years old, made the decision I wanted to be a doctor. Jumped right in, went to school, got good grades, eventually got into medical school. And I did it without really knowing really exactly what I wanted to do with my life, with my career. And I just kind of went in. I had some mentors. I thought being a doctor would be the cool thing to do. I thought of course, I wanted to help people and I loved learning and science and all of that. But somewhere along the way, and it was probably in my first 2 years of medical school, I started to feel like something was off. I saw, I was doing preceptorships and I saw the doctors I was working with burned out and not happy with their career, and got me really starting to think about long term, like what's my career going to look like, and is this what I really want to be doing long term? And so, once I got into that preceptorship rotation stage, I really kind of I ran into a brick wall basically. I just realized, oh crap, I made a huge mistake. This isn't the career that I actually want. And I started to feel like maybe medicine wasn't for me. But unfortunately, I was already 3 years in and invested already a ton of money, a ton of time, and I felt kind of stuck. So what I did was what any rational person would do in my situation is say, I'm going to suck it up and keep going and see what happens after I graduate. Maybe residency will be different. Maybe I'll feel different. Maybe I'll find a specialty I like more. And so I chugged along. And by the time it was time for me to graduate, nothing had changed. And that was when I really kind of thought critically about my career and what do I do from here, and really considered just dropping out and not doing residency at all, just going right into another career potentially. But of course I got cold feet and I figured I'm not ready to do that, so I went ahead with residency. I did my first year, and at the end of my first year kind of felt the same thing. I said, this, nothing's changed. If anything, it's gotten worse. But again, I had cold feet, and I said, maybe another year and things will change. And so went through another year of residency, and of course nothing got better. And actually, I felt like I got way more burned out. At that time, COVID had just happened, and I just felt like I was totally stuck. I had way too much sunk cost, invested way too much money. At that point, I was already almost $400,000 in student loan debt. And I didn't think really I had a path out of my career as a physician. And so I tell this story because a lot of healthcare professionals, and of course many nurses, my fiance is a nurse, so she's gone through this as well, and she's actually in a non-clinical job too now. But a lot of nurses kind of feel the same way. You enter the career pretty young, you go in, you get hit with the reality of it, and then you don't really know what other skills or what other opportunities are out there for you. You've got student loans, those are all kicking back in, and it's not very clear what other options you have. And so from nurses specifically, we hear a lot of trying to start their own business, or maybe going into aesthetics, or maybe going to get more school and becoming a nurse practitioner. And so for us at MatchDay, we always say, you don't actually have to go back to school. You don't have to start over. You don't have to get any certifications. You can actually do what I did and do what hundreds of MatchDay fellows have done, which is rebrand yourself, recreate your identity, rebrand your skills, learn how to present them, and then break into a non-clinical job where you can make just as much, if not more money as you would be as a nurse, and potentially with a much better lifestyle. So that's a little bit about my background, how it relates to you. I always like to share this because it just gives context. I also like to talk a little bit about how I came to founding MatchDay. After I left residency, took me about a year to land a non-clinical job, but I was lucky. I landed a job in clinical operations, landed a great salary that almost matched my physician salary. And then I had a bunch of friends, doctors, asking me, hey, how did you do this? How can we do this? How can we break into a non-clinical job? And through my experience, I realized, well, there's no job board that I could send you. There's no kind of one conversation I could help you with that's going to change the trajectory. Essentially, there's a whole process that I had to go through, from an identity crisis to learning how to speak about myself, to learning how to network effectively, to learning how to do my resume and all of that. There was a lot involved, and I felt like I struggled to communicate that to a lot of clinicians who wanted to make the same move, because I think they believed it was a lot easier than it actually was. And so some of you here might be, just starting out, just starting to think about this next phase of your career. And some of you may have already been trying for a while, maybe sending applications, not hearing back. Maybe you've gotten an interview and it went nowhere, and you're kind of just stuck spinning your wheels. So if you're in either one of those situations, you're in the right place. And most of our fellows, come in with either of those situations currently. So, I went through this phase of trying to explain it wasn't a simple pivot. It wasn't just about the job boards. It was about reconstructing yourself, your identity, and having a real strategy to breaking into this new career. And of course, that takes work, and that's essentially what we built MatchDay for. It's so that there's a proven, structured path to making this career pivot. Another thing I ran into was, of course, family, friends, people telling me I was crazy, saying, how are you ever going to make the amount of money you'd make as a doctor? How are you going to pay off your student loans? How are you going to break into a new job? Like, they weren't wrong, and these are people that really cared about me. But for me, I had reached a point where I was just so miserable and burned out from my job. I really didn't see a path forward for me just clocking in every day to the clinic. And I had a lot of guilt around that because I felt like I should just be grateful. I should just suck it up. I should just do what everybody else does. But it felt like a part of my soul was being ripped out of me. And, there's talk about moral injury and feeling like you're not doing things the right way. And of course, insurance, a lot of things I'm sure many of you nurses have dealt with. And so I just said, it's worth the risk for me. It's worth taking a chance because I'm not going to spend the next 10 years and be stuck when I'm, later in my career and I have a family and all these other things. I'm going to take the risk right now and figure it out. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Maybe I go back to being a doctor. But I wasn't going to just let things go and suck it up. I knew that the best time for me to plant that seed was right there and then. And so I took the risk and I did it. And of course, it was scary. It was difficult. I had a lot of fear around it. And I had a lot of uncertainty. I had no idea what was going to happen or if it was even going to work out. And I think that's a lot of our fellows that come into the fellowship. They feel that same fear where, there's imposter syndrome, there's uncertainty, they don't know if it's going to work out. But once they step in and get going, they see that it's actually a lot simpler than that, especially with the way we've set things up. And so the biggest thing for me at that point was the mindset shift. And so I told myself, hey, a bunch of my friends are going to doing fellowships and doing cardiology or GI or other different fellowships that are 3 and 4 years long, and they're obviously taking a pay cut to do that. And so I said, why can't I do that for myself? Why can't I just give myself 3 years, call it a fellowship, and see if I can break into a new role in health tech or, somewhere else that allows me to just focus on learning, growing, and getting my foot in the door, because I knew I just needed a shot. Once I got in, I'd figure it out. And so that really helped me from a mindset perspective because I wasn't so focused on the fear and the comparison and the validation. I was like, I'm just going back to school and I'm going to figure this out. And so that was a big mindset shift for me, and it allowed me to go on this journey and eventually figure it out. So what does it actually take? And I think I've touched on this, and it's one of the reasons I started MatchDay. When you're making a career pivot, and I've seen this a lot with healthcare professionals and just the industry in general, is that everybody was creating a solution like another community or creating a job board or creating a resume building app or something like that to help clinicians. And for me, I just didn't believe that was a real solution. I didn't believe that that was going to help people because I knew how big the gaps were for most clinicians that had to be filled in order to be successful in making this sort of career pivot. And I knew about the identity crisis. I knew about the resume gaps, the interview gaps, the networking gaps, all of these things that really take a lot of work and a lot of support to fix. But once you figure that out and you learn it, you can do it over and over again for the rest of your career. But also, it gives you your power back. It gives you your confidence back. It gives you the momentum so that you can actually go through this process and be successful in it, and not just have to, try these different gimmicky things that just don't ultimately work out. And so the MatchDay Fellowship is meant to take you from point A to point B, from no experience, no job, no zero skills in health tech, to understanding your skills and ultimately breaking into a role and landing a job. And we've done that now hundreds of times across our fellowship, and we'll share some of those stats with you later in this presentation. And also, the struggles, I'll touch on this a little bit later in today's presentation, but just to give you a little bit of an idea of those struggles that you may already be facing. There's a lot to overcome in a career transition, and we always tell our fellows that this takes work. And so if you're going to commit to this process, you really need to commit, and you really need to be 100% in. It's not something that you can kind of do willy-nilly, I guess, for lack of a better word. You really have to be invested in the process and committed to it. And most of our fellows, they're still working full-time jobs when they work with us. But in terms of commitment, like 3 to 5 hours a week minimum, that's with working with us, obviously, because we'd be condensing a lot of the work you'd have to do and filling in the gaps. But if you're doing this on your own, you have to treat it kind of like a full-time job, essentially. So this is a slide that when I was in residency, my program director brought up to us, and it's funny because today is July 1st, and it's the first day that residents are starting. My brother is actually entering ENT residency, so today's his first day. And on our first day of residency, our program director talked to us about this slide, and there's a reason for that, because July 1st, it's new interns, and they say, that's the most dangerous time to go into the hospital because you're working with a bunch of new residents that don't know what they're doing. And so there is some truth to that, but not necessarily, because I think residency does a good job of teaching us this particular slide and how to really know what we don't know. And I find that analogy here very similar, because the most dangerous part of a career transition is being in this orange corner right here, when you don't know what you don't know. And that means you don't know what gaps you have. You don't know what's going right or wrong in your application process. You don't know how recruiters are responding to you. You don't know how you're coming across. And so a lot of people that try doing these career transitions alone, they really have a lot of gaps in here. They just are completely unaware of what's missing, what they're doing well, what they're doing wrong, and what it is that's kind of like not even in their conscious or subconscious. And so we try to take fellows from this stage to understanding their gaps, knowing their gaps and knowing how to fill them, and then it becoming an unconscious process where it's just like flow state. You know what you're doing, you know how to navigate the process, you know how to interview, and it just becomes something very repeatable and easy for you. And so I try not to spend too much time on this slide, but I do think it's important, especially with today being July 1st. I feel like it's a good day to touch on it. So kind of just reiterating on this again, most people who are doing these do-it-yourself career transitions, maybe you've been doing this yourself for a while, a lot of people are starting at stage 4, when really they should be starting at stage 1 or 2. And so what I mean by starting at stage 4 is like, that's when you're just kind of like applying blindly on LinkedIn, you're showing up to interviews unprepared, you're going to job boards and searching them and just putting out a bunch of applications. That is a recipe for disaster, and it's a recipe to burn yourself out and completely lose hope in the process. It's very important to start at stage 1. And that's why the fellowship is here. It's because we start you in stage 1, and we take you through the entire process so that you understand your gaps, you know your transferable skills, you know your target roles, you know what you actually want, you are grounded, you are confident, you know how to navigate the job search effectively, you are interviewing appropriately so that you get the job, and then you're ultimately negotiating for the best offer possible. And so that kind of ties with this slide here is, if you don't know what you don't know, a lot of the times you're starting at stage 4, and that's not going to lead you down the right path. So I think I've already addressed this a few times so far, but our goal at MatchDay is to make the invisible visible. It's to guide you through each stage of competence, to start you at stage 1 and get you through all the stages so that you're landing a job, and to close the gaps that exist, not just the surface level ones. And it's not really, we're not just helping you get a job, we're helping you build confidence in yourself, in your career transition, in your ability to navigate multiple career transitions across your career, especially in this AI age. So that's my story, and my question to you all today is, what is your story going to be? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. In other presentations, I've taken a lot of our workshop viewers through a meditation that we call the Monday morning or the Tuesday morning meditation. And really it's a meditation to help you get clear on your goals, to get clear on the life you want to actually live, and to start thinking about what it's actually going to feel like to have that opportunity. And it's really hard to do that when you're in the grind of it every single day, when you're, getting up in the morning, getting dressed for work, going and working a 12-hour shift, and then coming back and, being exhausted and just trying to get through the rest of the day. Maybe you're putting on Netflix or whatever it is, and by the time that's done, you're in bed and the next day's starting again. And so when you're living in that state of survival, it's really hard to envision your future, to envision and feel the real future that you want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off my camera here, and I'm going to walk us through a quick 5-minute meditation, 5 to 7-minute meditation. And if you can, get in a quiet area, get in a place where you're alone, and do this exercise. I did this exercise 3 years ago with a coach that I had, and it really helped me get clear on the decisions I wanted to make so that I could, ultimately break into a new role, but also that led me to starting MatchDay because it helped me understand I really want to help hundreds, thousands of clinicians get out of that dark tunnel and into the light. And so this exercise helped me do that. So I'm not a meditation guru by any means, but if you'd like to listen to my voice and walk through it, we'll do that for about 7 minutes. After that, Jenny will take over and she'll walk you through the actual workshop materials. So that's more tactical, really focusing on the roles and some of the tactical things you do with your resume, networking, things like that. So I'll turn off my camera here, and I'll go ahead and get into a meditative state with you guys. So we'll go ahead and start with just a couple big deep breaths. So if you can close your eyes. Just take a big deep breath and let it sink in. One more big deep breath. All right. So it's Sunday night. You're getting ready for bed. And before you get into bed, you have this feeling. And you have this feeling that tomorrow is going to be a really good day. It's going to be the best day ever. It's going to be the day where everything goes right for you and you show up into your perfect job. When you wake up tomorrow, you're going to have the perfect job, you're going to have the perfect morning, and you're going to be doing everything that you want to be doing in your day-to-day and in your personal life. So you hop into bed, and the next day comes around. Alarm goes off, it's ringing, it's 7 a.m., it's 8 a.m., and you get out of bed, and all of a sudden you feel just a burst of energy. You feel like everything today is going to go perfect. I'm going to have this good feeling inside of my body, and I'm not going to have any stress. No money problems, no work problems, no patients harassing me or pooping on me or whatever it is that patients do. And you're going to walk into the bathroom and do your hygiene and whatever it is that you do, and you're going to look at yourself in the mirror. And as you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you take a moment to just be grateful, to tell yourself you're proud of yourself for making it all this way, for finally building the life that you've always wanted to have, and for the opportunities that are going to come today. So you walk out of your bathroom, and maybe then it's out of your bedroom, and your perfect morning starts. Think about how that perfect morning would start for you. For some of us, it's as simple as going to the kitchen and making a fresh cup of coffee, smelling the coffee, opening up the curtains, letting the light come into the house. Maybe it's getting your kids ready for school, having a moment to sit with them. Maybe it's, getting into bed with your spouse or whoever it is and giving them a kiss goodbye or hello or good morning. Maybe it's going on a walk to start the morning, or maybe it's just reading a book. However your perfect morning starts, just let that happen for you. So you've had your perfect morning, and now you're going to have your perfect day at work. Where is your current work location? Are you working from home? Are you going to an office? Are you going to a co-working space? You're going to go to your workstation, and you're going to log in or start your day, or maybe check in if it's in person. For some of us, that's in person. And when you log in, your perfect day unfolds. For some of us, we're in a role where we talk to people, where we do customer success, where we're logging in and going into our CRM or whatever it might be. For others of us, it's having that first morning meeting with the team. For some of us, it's checking in with our staff and meeting with the people that we work with and having a drink of coffee or just chatting about our day. However your perfect day starts, let that sink in for you. And think about what it is you'd like to be doing today. Are you at home working on independent tasks? Are you meeting with patients virtually or in person? Are you working remotely and doing project management where it's more independent work? Do you have a set of objectives that you're trying to reach for a team or an initiative you're trying to build? Maybe you're in product management where you're in charge of deciding what gets built for the company. Think about what it is you'd like to take on. Would you like to achieve a big goal today or this week or this month or this quarter and you're working towards it? Or would you just like to jump in and have your meetings and meet your people and check things off the checklist? Think about what it is that drives you and what motivates you and makes you feel fulfilled. And do those things today because it's your perfect day. And so you're going through your perfect day. Everything's going smoothly at work. You have a midday meeting with your team. Everybody's excited to be working together. And you're approaching the end of the day. And as you're approaching the end of the day, maybe it's 4 or 5 o'clock, you feel really accomplished today. You feel like you did something good. You feel like you made progress. You feel like you were able to work towards your goals, help the company move forward, and you're able to check everything off the list and close your laptop and end the day. And when you end the day, work disappears. It doesn't follow you home. You don't have charts to do. You don't have to respond to any emails. You go home and you get to be with your family, or you get to go pursue your hobbies. Maybe it's going to the gym. Maybe it's going to the sauna. Maybe it's going on a walk. Or maybe it's just coming home and having dinner with your family. So evening rolls around, and now you feel a sense of relief. The life you always wanted is here. The day you always wanted is here. The money you've always wanted is here. You're getting paid what you deserve. And now, all you have to do is be present. Be present with your family, with your life, with the things you want to accomplish. And as you wrap up the day, you are getting into bed, you go back to being grateful. And you're grateful for the perfect day you just had, for the money that you're making, for the family and friends that you have, and for the career and opportunities that are going to come to you today and for the rest of your career. And that's your perfect day. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to come back from that. And I'll get back on camera here. So for me, this exercise really, I love doing it, honestly. If anything I have to look forward to on these, I love coming on these workshops. Well, I personally, as I'm talking, I'm going through this myself with you. And it's always nice to be able to get back to that grounded state. And I feel like it sets a really good stage for what's to come, because now you can take a fresh lens on what's to come and really think about the rest of your career and the decisions you want to make coming up soon. So without further ado, I'll have Jenny take it from here.
Thanks, Rami. Always feel like I'm in a positive Zen headspace after that meditation. So appreciate that. And as Rami had referenced, I'll go into my piece that I would describe as more tactical, definitive ways you can tackle the search even tonight if you want to get started. So as far as who this is for, I did tailor these suggestions according to our fellows who are RNs, nurse practitioners, anyone in the nursing field, but it could really translate to any clinical background. And I like to get started with giving you a sense of where do our fellows land. If going non-clinical, what does that mean industry-wise? You could speculate, title-wise, but I want to add some clarity to that end. There are some common hubs that our fellows pivot into. So these categories are among the most popular and still continuing on within the past month. You might want to consider if you're a people person, more extroverted, enjoy supporting perhaps in a remote capacity or in person. Sales and customer success is a great route. Clinical operations, product and program management, um, improving processes if you're more of maybe classify yourself as a type A person, enjoy evaluating processes and making sure nothing's falling through the cracks, evaluating how things could be more fluid. Um, Also, education across the board. These titles are landing within a range of healthcare and health tech companies. Oftentimes, they're early stage startups, but also they're in larger companies in the education umbrella within Handshake. So there's various entities and routes you can take, but these 6 categories will help you mull over what direction you might want to pivot into. And I do, and you'll notice this is a theme throughout my piece, but I do want to drive home that your clinical skills are 100% transferable to all of those categories I mentioned and beyond. There are some outside of the box roles our fellows land as well, but as far as translating that, I'm going to go more into detail on this, but just surface level, I'd like to have you start mulling over the fact that you are doing problem solving, which is needed in the corporate world constantly, with your patient assessments, identifying barriers, practical care plans. You're running the gamut with that, and the same goes for communication. So needed in any non-clinical role, clear communication that is prompt. And I mean, the notes and reporting that goes hand in hand with nursing, as well as clinical reasoning, empathy, project management. I feel like empathy can get slept on as a skill set, but we are really, the non-clinical sector across the board is looking for, if it's a sound company with a positive mission, they're looking for those who are going to be sharp with reasoning, but also compassionate and empathetic to serving the clients or customers that are around that designated mission. So in choosing the right path, it can be daunting. I recognize that, and it's something that I would say more than half of the fellows I work with as a career coach, they are coming in more on the spectrum of, I have no idea what I want to do, and I don't know what fits me, what I want. I will say others come in with a specific job title that they've been on the hunt for a while. So whichever end you are on, I want you to make some evaluations. And this ties to Rami's meditation when it comes to lifestyle fit. Your perfect day, your perfect week, year. What do you envision for yourself? Getting more tactical with the schedule you would have, the work environment, what types of people you're working with. Do you want to travel? Maybe you want to be on site. I do get a good amount of fellows interested in remote work, which occurs often in our placements, but there's others that do still want to remain close to serving patients just in a non-clinical capacity. So I'll give some examples of that, but of course you also want to identify your skill alignment. I definitely have my extroverted fellows that are like, I definitely want the day to fly by, just engaging with people 9 to 5. And then others that are like, I love being behind the scenes, like being client customer facing isn't my jam. I want to be more so monitoring and analyzing process improvements. So evaluating that personality, what you're good at, and then of course compensation and growth. An advantage of the non-clinical space is there is not as much of a ceiling when you play your cards right and land in the appropriate company that you can grow. The compensation goes well beyond of what you could potentially hit as a nurse, which is definitely a pro versus a con. And I will give you some tools here when it comes to me referencing. You can start evaluating this as early as tonight. You might want to give a Google to one of these assessments that are completely free, and I've been told feedback wise are quite enlightening in giving you ideas of what does align for you if you feel like you need some feedback virtually as to what direction makes sense. Here at MatchDay, most of the coaches are team Claude over GPT, Gemini, it goes on, Perplexity, but self-discovery prompt using Claude, this is one of my go-tos. You can take a screenshot of this. This presentation will be published within 24 hours, but if you want to capture this and integrate some paths that you're already potentially mulling over, and if maybe you are uncertain about the hubs I mentioned, program management, operations manager, customer success manager, you could plug in those three, have it ask you a series of questions, and I have found the output of this prompt to be highly valuable and actually all the more productive than the other assessments that are more in the clouds when it comes to you are this type of personality, while the Claude prompt will be more specific. So could be good to do both ends of those suggestions, but I can almost guarantee you would leave, if taking the time to share appropriate details, you would have a document mapped out for you within 24 hours for the self-discovery piece of what do you want to target and how to start moving and getting yourself in motion. Even doing that simple prompt plug and play with Claude, that is getting yourself moving. Acknowledge that as yourself building momentum, even if it's as simple as deciding, I don't like this and I do like this. That helps tune in more as to everything else that waterfalls and rebranding toward that target title. So just to put more of a mindset hat on, these small consistent actions build and build toward momentum and ultimately getting that offer. So as far as these 3 pillars of successful transition in the job search, I always tell my fellows that reframing and positioning is essential, but a large majority of offers were a result of networking. And networking has a vast amount of tactics that you can put into action that I won't have time to deep dive into this evening, but who you know and getting referrals, even if it's a friend of a friend of a friend, will be more of a door opener than cold applying and moving on, even if it is with a well-tailored resume. So I want you to start thinking about that reframing though, and the networking. I do want to give you, although there's so many ways one can initiate networking tactics, I do want to share a specific suggestion that I know is one of Rami's favorite tactics when it comes to building your network, getting an intro. What we like about it is that a self-contained, forwardable email, it makes it hands off to who is helping you. It is simply, when done right, is asking a favor for them to hit the forward button and send. And you do want to have that mindset when it comes to building your network, those relationships, getting intros. How can I make this as seamless as possible for someone who has a packed calendar and it's a favor, it's low priority for them? So try to make it as hands-off as possible when it comes to asking for that introduction. And one of the best ways that I included the prompt for is this networking email template. And although I am sharing prompts, I do want to note when you are populating the results, you're going to get a lot of beautifully tailored versions of a networking self-contained email. But what I want you to keep in mind is that you don't want it to sound like AI. You want it to sound like your genuine, true identity. So definitely take some time to tailor any results you get from Claude, GPT, and beyond so that it truly sounds like you and you can feel good about this is who I am when you are getting that intro made on your behalf.
And
And
I think that's a good place for me to jump in real
yeah,
quick, Jen,
absolutely.
because like you said, this is my favorite thing, or not favorite. It's just I use this all the time. Whenever I'm looking for intros to people that maybe are out of reach to me, and this was something I learned from a friend of mine who was at Y Combinator. They teach this to all of their startup founders and all of that. But it's such a great way to build your network and to show that you're being considerate when you're asking for an intro. And actually, fellows send them to me all the time when they're trying to get connected with someone that's in my network or that I'm connected with. And it makes it super easy because all I have to do is forward, say, hey, Josh, sending this along, are you open to a conversation? And they've got all the contacts in there, and it just makes it super easy for people to do favors for you, because what I find is people genuinely want to help you. They want to do nice things for you, but they don't want to spend 30 minutes out of their day writing an email, trying to come up with everything, using more mind space to go and do that for you. It's just too much work, especially in the world we live in where there's like just so much noise, right? People want to help you, but not give you 30 minutes of their day. They will give you 2 minutes. And I think that's something that if you take away nothing else from today's workshop, take away this, because it will definitely make a difference if you do it properly. And a lot of our fellows get coaching on how to do this too. Sometimes they need some tweaking, or they utilize our community, which has over 1,000 plus members with hiring managers, founders, other fellows. It's a lot of our fellows who have landed jobs at health tech companies, they come back and they share opportunities, or we get fellows who know of fellows who have landed jobs at these opportunities. They'll utilize this to connect with them. Hey, I'm a MatchDay fellow. You were in the program. Can you introduce me to this person? They'll use this self-contained email. So very, very high yield thing to save or screenshot here.
Yes.
Take it away, Jenny.
But agreed. I have seen multiple interviews over the past 2 months occur as a result of this being put into practice. So, echoing that, and what I do often hear in response to that is I don't know anyone, I don't have any connections in the non-clinical world. And to that, I would say start mulling over those who you've crossed paths with, even if it was from 3 employers ago. I oftentimes find that there might be a connection from your alma mater or the operations department of a hospital that you worked at maybe 9 years ago, asking that informational interview. It is that's another prompt I could share as far as creating a map out of what connections could you actually have results in that conversation. So
Yeah. And I would add too, I've even had someone reach out to me with one of these emails as like a secondary connection, and just mention the fact that I went to Michigan State University and this person went to Michigan State University. And so they used that as a commonality. Hey, Rami, fellow Spartan here, go green. And, I have an odd request. I'm trying to get introduced to this person. Would you mind forwarding along an email? I didn't know this person. I had no connection to them. I said, yeah, why not? Go green. So, that's another thing is like you could utilize your alumni network from your university or a former employer. Let's say you worked at the same hospital. There's lots of people that work non-clinical jobs in your hospital, and they have big networks. So you might just have to, look at the person you're trying to connect with and see who's a secondary connection or a third connection. Those are other ways to utilize that as well.
Yes, and I'm glad you referenced the second and third party connection, because as you build your network virtually on LinkedIn, that anyone on the search actively conducting outreach is likely, if they're doing the search right, is tapping into LinkedIn, its features, and being viewed by recruiters, building their network. And as you do build it, it will note if you have a second, third party connection. If you're directly connected, maybe you're on the flip side and have many connections, and it will tell you how close that connection is. So cold outreach is also a piece of the puzzle. If you are interested in targeting specific companies, because one of our coaches is actually a director of recruiting at Rowe, this is always top of mind. It's an up and coming healthcare classified company. So you could do this as early as tonight if you have some dream companies. Like my fellow earlier today wants to go into the wearable space. So we were looking at the Aura company page. So there is, apologies that it's a little tiny here, but what you will find on any LinkedIn company page, simply typing it into the search bar, there will be a people tab. And by typing in recruiter or program for program management, whatever it may be, it will populate anyone in that category. So typically I type in the word talent, it's going to give you the whole talent acquisition team, HR. It's smart enough to feed you the people who are cross-departmental, close to that responsibility of finding the talent and getting them onboarded. So recruiters are inundated with messages, so it's good to mix it up, but they are still a good go-to in getting front-facing. So that is something you can do when it comes to finding tons of options to start doing that outreach. And as you do that outreach, you're going to be hitting the connect button on repeat, and it's bound to, as a result, get some connection request approvals. When you do that, assuming you don't have LinkedIn Premium, once you're connected, you have the ability to send voice notes. And that definitely is a good strategy as well, to be sending blocks of text. But when it comes to this AI-driven job market, I've noticed on repeat that fellows are getting a higher response rate by using the power of their voice. So a slept-on feature when it comes to LinkedIn is hitting the mic button when you're on mobile. Instead of typing in a message as a block of text, you can hit the mic button, give a little elevator pitch on yourself, or a coffee chat, 15 minutes of your time pitch, in an informal way, but it is bound to build momentum. And the same goes for email. A not very well known, I've found, tool that you can use to send voice notes via email is called Beep. So definitely start mulling over your templates when it comes to a traditional email, as I've referenced, but also your elevator pitch, which would involve a good amount of coaching sessions to get really confident with it. But once you've nailed your elevator pitch, you'll be saying it on repeat and building momentum from there. But of course, the resume is a crucial piece as well. When you are networking, usually it does involve attached is my resume. So you want to make sure that when they view it, they're connecting the dots. I always say a resume explaining what you do is not as valuable as a resume that explains what you've accomplished. What impact have you made for your employer? And how does that translate into customer success or product development? So these are some prompts, again, you can screenshot, because I do find writing your own bullets is great, but to get the ball rolling foundationally, these prompts will open the floodgates for ideas of stating your job title, that you're transitioning to what title you have an interest. Help me rewrite these resume bullets to the relevant skills. Quantification, I have seen on repeat. Our placed fellows, those resumes that resulted in offers, a trend is it's always no more than 2 pages, and each role had minimum 2 metrics per role. So something to keep in mind, quantifying your impact as much as possible. And to that, I often hear, I have nothing to quantify. So there are ways you can integrate that, such as the amount of patients you're serving, how many departments are you collaborating with, what's the number of notes you're submitting. There's so many different ways, ideally monetarily, that I would dive into in a resume session, but also identifying your hidden experience. So these 3 are a few of my go-tos for building that foundational resume. And I want to connect the dots further. This is actually a guide that I built alongside one of my fellows who is a NICU nurse. And I want to shout her out, Chelsea, because it has become a guide that I've begun to share with other fellows, whether they're a nurse, dental hygienist, whatever their background is. And it helps reframe the corporate language. What is that? What is clinical language, and how does it translate into corporate? So, a patient being a customer, or a nurse handoff to a status report. So these are some things that might seem,
Sydney, I think the screen's not sharing anymore.
Oh, thanks for shouting that out. Let's see. How about now? Let's see. I am going to, because it says I'm sharing, I'm going to attempt another method here.
Yep, there we go.
All right, great. In case it has my screen vanish again, I won't open it up, but it is something that I pass on to Essie so that she can give the full rundown, because it actually does even have some suggestions when it comes to reframing your language and storytelling for interviews, because when putting all of these tactics into practice, guaranteed it will lead to interviews. So that guide should definitely be helpful. And as far as examples, I did want to show an actual nursing resume that's more the before, and you'll see this one spoke to me because it's very aligned with most of the original resumes that I see coming into the fellowship. There are some things that I find strong, but there is room for improvement. And more importantly, I'll show you the after of a resume that resulted in an implementation manager role. So outside of, let's see, I want to make sure it's probably tiny. So again, this is something that you can look at more closely when you're on your own time, but it starts with a summary connecting the dots as to how their nursing background translates to, in this case, the target title of implementation, which I would categorize in the umbrella of onboarding, customer success, as well as product management. There are some titles that are a blend of multiple skill sets, but this particular nurse had an interest in having clients understand software, because there was certain tools that were being used at her clinic that she took the lead on her colleagues understanding how to use it, put into practice. So that connected the dots for us. This could be a great target title for her. So that is something you can take a deeper look at, but it's packed with ATS optimized keywords, application tracking systems. That's a term you'll hear a lot in the job search, as well as quantifiable impact in the bullets. So I do have the entire resume available in the presentation. And as far as that particular resume that resulted in a placement, we used some more in-depth prompts. This is once you've done those initial help me translate my skill rewrites. Now, once that is done, you can go into write me a job description based off of 500 healthcare product management roles and integrate the top 30 trending ATS keywords. What's most commonly coming up as a skill that is needed, or even better, to know a program that is needed. Very commonly, I notice CSMs are they're taking free courses for Salesforce because it's a very common tool that is required as a CSM. And if there's tools listed on a job description you have no familiarity with, that's completely fine, but it's good to get an understanding of what are the most common ones that are being asked for. So that is one that I've used on repeat with fellows and has resulted in some strong tailoring so that you're not having to retailer the resume for every single application. I won't try my best to have a resume to avoid that, so it's less of a burden to rapidly have about 10 applications minimum sent per week. And LinkedIn, I do want to do something similar as far as a before. And some of you might not have a LinkedIn account, which is completely fine. You haven't needed it in the clinical space, but a pretty standard original LinkedIn I find looks like this. This was one of my fellows who had the headline. I mean, and having a couple of connections, that I do want to voice, that is a great starting point. But something that I wanted to share as far as an after version of a LinkedIn is one of our fellows that doubled her income, got a lot of LinkedIn outreach flow. So thought this was a great example. As you can see, not very captivating, is not branded to the target title. While with Caitlin, she was very thoughtful in a captivating headline that in her case acknowledged that she's a licensed occupational therapist, but does healthcare business development, and it swiftly landed her a wonderful offer. So I had her approval to share this this profile, and we could certainly, it's on my list to have a full-blown LinkedIn webinar, but the top of your profile makes or breaks if a recruiter is going to bother scrolling down to read more about you. So I put a lot of weight into having the location. As you can see, she's not only got her home city, but United States, so that she can be found by recruiters for US-wide remote talent. And it's verifiable that her employer and her university tie to those official company pages. So all of this into practice, I wanted to give some examples of recent success stories of nurses. Jeffrey took the route of account management, which I would put in the CSM umbrella, but he is now got a 20K plus increase, making 140. Anna was my own fellow. You probably can find her testimonial on our website. I know she had a very positive experience and is still a nurse, but in a better suited holistic employer while doing wellness coaching. So for some fellows, they may be looking for a semi-pivot versus a full-blown pivot, but Shawnice is doing very well, also above 100K as a surgical services coordinator. So some good recent success stories to maybe check out further on the site. But what I do want you to leave here today, driving home the fact that your your momentum in taking action, even it's as simple as doing some research of what companies are perhaps captivating to you, who you know, how you can lean into that, all of that will result in you finding a career that fits the dream or your perfect day, as Rami had in his very enlightening meditation. So I'm definitely open to questions, and I will pass this presentation on to Essie. But just really grateful, those of you who are still in attendance, that you took the time to learn more about some of my go-to job search tactics.
Thanks, Jenny. I popping in here really quickly just to sort of reintroduce myself, because I think there's only a handful of people and when I first did that. And then I'll pass it back to Rami to talk about the fellowship in more detail. Now, again, if we haven't met, my name is Essie and I'm on the admissions team, and often, again, the first person to connect with when someone is considering the fellowship. And, you know, my background, I've worked with probably hundreds of nurses, but I also have conversations with nurses on a daily basis, multiple times a day. So what I want to do is actually attach my calendar link directly in the chat, just in case you want to further the conversation. Sometimes this process can feel a bit isolating, and if you don't have anyone in your inner circle who has made a pivot or considered a pivot, it can feel quite daunting to go into the market and trying to figure out what's possible and what's possible for you specifically. So on these conversations, really it needs to be about you and your background and your goals and what you're looking to achieve. And so we can really see, first of all, can we help you? And if so, how can we help you? And obviously consider timing and all of that. So I will always give my honest perspective and also understand the sort of feeling of being stuck. I totally get it. So I will, again, attach link my direct booking link there. So it's a familiar face. And so then we can further that conversation, and if it's something that you're needing a bit more support on.
Beautiful. Thank you, Essie, and beautiful presentation, Jenny. Thank you so much. So if you're still here, the end of this conversation is really to walk you through the fellowship and what it is and how it works. So before I go into the actual fellowship, I'm going to go into something that is also a very good piece for you to be aware of as you're making this career pivot. And I call these basically the career killers. So if you're doing this on your own, I definitely want you to be aware of this, so that you're not spinning your wheels, staying stuck and not making progress. So after I go over those, you'll have a good idea of kind of like the don'ts you don't want to do, so you're not staying stuck, and then walking through how we kind of navigate them and help you get through them in the fellowship. So I'm going to share my screen here. And can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So these are the 6 career killers, and we call them career killers because these are the things that keep people stuck, spinning, not making progress, losing hope, that sort of thing. And so these are the things that I don't want you to fall into. So for those of you who are nurses, you've spent your whole career kind of building that identity as a nurse, right? Since the time you were probably 18 years old, going into school, getting into nursing, starting to work as a nurse. It's, how you derive your value. It's how you present yourself. It's how people know you. And what often happens for people as they're going through this transition, or maybe even into their first role, is kind of feeling like they're having an identity crisis. And I know that I personally faced this when I was a doctor. I spent my whole career since I was 18 years old studying to be a doctor, 4 years, then another 4 years of medical school as a doctor, residency as a doctor. So 10 years building that identity. And when I jumped out and I was trying to build a new career, my whole world fell apart because I didn't know who I was, what value I brought, and how to even, feel confident in the direction I was going in. And so a lot of people going through career transitions, their biggest struggle is the identity crisis piece, and learning how to not just accept the new identity, but really embrace it and be excited about it and not feel any guilt or shame about it. Because at the end of the day, this is your life. This is your career. You deserve a good career. You deserve the pay that you've always wanted. You deserve to be valued and to be present and to have all the things. And I especially feel for nurses because you guys just have it so hard, harder than most professionals, because you are literally holding up the healthcare system on your guys' backs. And I know this because, like I said, my fiance is also was a nurse. She does work fully non-clinical, but once a month she'll go and work a nursing shift, and she'll come back and she's just like completely drained. And I'm like, that's just one day. So for nurses, I really feel for you guys, and I understand the position you're in. Also, I was obviously worked as a doctor in an inpatient setting, and was very close with the nurses we work with. So just because the healthcare system really kind of relies on you guys to hold it up, it doesn't mean that you have to be a martyr to the system or stay in it out of guilt or shame. You have to put yourself first, and you have to really be okay with that. And if you're here, you've already kind of gone through some of that thinking process, right? We're not going into healthcare systems and hospitals and saying we want to take care of all of your nurses and convert them. No, we're here to work for the people that have kind of already been thinking about this and want to make a change. So the identity crisis piece is, something we can help you navigate. You not only have access to your one-on-one coach, but you'll have access to a mindset coach and other coaches that have worked with professionals navigating this. But if you're stuck on the identity piece of being a nurse, it's going to be really hard to break out, because when you're doing this transition, you're not positioning yourself as a nurse. After you go through the clarity phase, you'll be positioning yourself as the implementation specialist or the program manager or the customer success leader. And you'll work your nursing background into that, but it's not going to be the headline. And that's something that a lot of clinicians and nurses especially struggle with when they're making this pivot, is like they really want to keep that nursing piece front and center, and you can, but it's not necessarily the case, and it might hold you back even. So navigating this is a big piece, and you want to be aware of that if you're currently struggling with it. The second career killer is the lack of clarity or confusion. So if you still don't know where you fit in, what's out there for you, what your transferable skills are, and if you're not grounded in that direction, you're going to spend a lot of your time applying randomly, or kind of just spraying your application and not having any targeted strategic direction. And this part is very foundational. If you're in that place where you don't have a clear direction and you don't feel good about it, it's going to be really, really hard to break through, because in this competitive market, you really kind of have to be like a sniper rifle. You have to be super targeted, very specific, and really know what you're going after, because you want to be focusing on what's going to work, not just spraying and praying your application. And so one thing we do in the fellowship is really spend time on that first part, which is stage one, where you're getting clarity, you're learning where your skills align, how to speak about them, what the transferable skills are, building your assets, and then going forward in a confident and clear direction. Career killer number 6, this was the one I suffered from the most, and it was, and sometimes still is, lone wolf syndrome. So this is when you think you can figure it out all on your own, you don't need any help, you're just going to figure it out and do it, and you'll spin your wheels and not ask for any support. And this is Something I actually find a lot of nurses suffer from, because you're so used to doing that on the floors, is just kind of like taking everything on and letting it all pile up. And sometimes I find nurses don't ask for as much support as they need. And so having a support system, having someone in your corner is a huge benefit. And that's the biggest benefit of the MatchDay Fellowship. And you kind of want someone to pick you up when things get hard. There is a lot of rejection in this process. It's not like a clinical job where recruiters are just begging you to take a job. It's really quite the opposite, and you want to have someone in your corner to help you keep that momentum going, and not beating yourself up when things, when you get a rejection or something like that. So having a network, having a community, having someone in your corner that's really invested in your success is a really big support system. And if you decide not to do the fellowship, having a friend, having someone or a mentor that can help you, I would really suggest, having someone in your corner that's going to be a sounding board for you when things get tough. This next one is the downward spiral. If you, and this is something that's kind of inevitable in a career transition, there will be rejection. So if you don't know how to pick yourself up from that, or if you're not used to rejection, or if you really struggle and you kind of know you struggle with rejection, this is something really important to be aware of, because you kind of just have to let it slide off in this process. You can't take it personal. You're going to get filtered out for a million different reasons. You're going to get rejected for reasons that have nothing to do with your skills, your experience, your credibility, or your worth. It's just a nature of the process. And so not falling into that downward spiral, keeping up momentum, building an upward spiral is very important. And that just comes from having a support system, having a coach like Jenny or one of our 17 coaches at MatchDay that can really help you keep up that confidence. Like, hey, don't sweat it. These happen. We just got to keep up the momentum and follow the game plan, follow the strategy, keep working on it. And if you just follow these steps, it's going to work out. And then the last two here I haven't read, and these are more like knowledge gaps. So the biggest thing for professionals going through our fellowship that they really value is the feedback loops. So when something's not going right, you want to know why it's not going right. If an interview goes wrong, you want to know why it went wrong. If you've got a red flag that's coming up and no one's telling you about it, you want to know that. Most 99.9% of recruiters will not tell you the real reason they are rejecting you. We will. We will tell you the truth. We will give you that honest clarity and feedback, so you're not just spinning your wheels and wondering what the heck's going on here. You want to have that guidance. You want to have that feedback loop, so you're getting better at the process, you're networking more effectively, you're interviewing more effectively. And so that structure and that feedback loop is very important. And if you're not getting that feedback loop through us, think about other ways you might be able to get that feedback loop, whether it's through a friend or someone else who's maybe in the space that can support you. And then the last thing is the knowledge and skills gap. Not knowing how to speak the language of business. So when you're working with our team, the resume, the LinkedIn, those are not isolated things that you're just handing off to us and getting prompted. Even if you put your resume or whatever it is through an AI and it builds it for you, you have to know how to speak about it. You have to know how to present it. You have to feel confident in speaking the language. And if you don't, recruiters are going to sniff that out like in a second, and it's just not going to lead anywhere. So the biggest value of working with us is these feedback loops and the workshops and the one-on-one support. And so when you're building your resume, you're building it with your coach together. So you're understanding every bullet point. You're understanding your metrics, and you're not feeling imposter syndrome about it, because if you're just letting AI build it, which we should do to some extent, you still have to speak about it. You still have to know how to talk about it. You still have to feel confident in it. And that's what the building it with your coach will do. Same thing with your LinkedIn. You're building your LinkedIn so that it matches your resume, so that when a recruiter sees it, they're not like, well, this resume doesn't even match this LinkedIn. This LinkedIn just shows a nurse, and that's not what we're looking for. And so they'll write you off and get skipped, and you won't know why. So, and then the last thing is your story arc. And so we say these three things work together. Your resume, which you've built with your coach, your LinkedIn, which you've built with your coach, and your story arc, which is really the brand. Like, how do you speak about this? How do you present it? What's your elevator pitch? If a recruiter asks you a question, you feel confident and grounded in your value that you bring, and you can tackle it from any angle and feel good about that. And so all of those things work together, and that's the last career killer. So you don't want to do these things isolated. You want to understand your story, your assets in a holistic way. So from here, I'll talk a little bit about the MatchDay Fellowship and who MatchDay is as a company. And I'm sharing our most recent placement report here, so you get an understanding of some of the stats that our fellows achieve. 88% of fellows are completely out of patient care. 76% are landing remote or hybrid jobs. We have a very high average satisfaction rate. Most fellows rave about MatchDay, and they're happy to have skills that they're going to be able to use now for the rest of their career. Average salary, fellows are landing is about $112K. The range is quite a bit higher than that. We see lots of roles like you saw with Caitlin and Jeffrey, like 140K, 150K. Pretty common, even 180K. We see that every now and then. And then we've got, standouts like Saruchi, who landed 240K. So there, in which we didn't include in this average. This is probably right around or a little bit higher than some nursing salaries, but also remember these jobs are remote and they're not with direct patient care, and there's a lot of upward career mobility, which is an important thing to remember. Once you get your foot in the door and you've built experience and you understand all the things you learn in the MatchDay Fellowship for navigating a job, often that will result in promotions or getting your next job or getting to a director level or a VP level. These are ways you can grow your career, and this is really more of an entry-level kind of salary for clinicians. And then lastly, the average days to getting an offer is about 88 days in our fellowship. And so when I talk about our fellowship and really what MatchDay is, you might be thinking, like, how is this different from other coaching systems or one-on-one coaching or independent coaches? Really what we've built is an operating system. Now we've done this now. Over 200 fellows have gone through the program, and we've refined the fellowship program and structure dozens of times to bring that average offer rate to 88 days. So the average do-it-yourself career transition is about probably 12 to 18 months. So think about that. We've taken something that takes a year, took myself a year, 18 months for most people, and we've condensed it down to that average offer rate being around 88 days. And it's because we take all of the learning across our 17 coaches. I've been hands-on with developing our system as well, and really bringing in the most impactful elements to focus on and walk you throughout this process. And so even coaches that come into MatchDay, we train them on our system. And Chanel, who's our program director, who's not on this call, she's been leading developing the system. And then Jenny's our program development director, who's also been helping fine-tune it. And so everything from the clarity architecture to market positioning to job search strategy, networking, negotiating your offer, and all of that, it's all built into the system that we've honed in on now through MatchDay with over 200 fellows and over 2 years now running this fellowship. And I also should say all of our coaches come from either recruiting backgrounds or career coaching backgrounds or HR backgrounds. And the reason for that is a real coach is, especially in a career coach, has to understand hiring dynamics. If you just work with another nurse or another clinician that doesn't truly understand these hiring dynamics, they're just not going to have the same insights and maybe will kind of like lead you down the wrong direction. And so we really place a lot of value in who we hire into MatchDay and the level of quality that we have with our coaches. Anybody that joins us has to go through 3 rounds of interviews with Jenny and Chanel. They have to do case studies and projects before they even get onboarded into MatchDay. And they also have to have a minimum of 2,500 hours of career coaching experience before working with us. So we bring on the best of the best here, and we do that for a reason, because we didn't want to build any program. We wanted to build something that's high quality, that works, and something that our fellows can rely on. And then the other piece here that I'll touch on briefly is the network advantage. So having 17 coaches with MatchDay gives us a huge advantage. There's a network effect that comes from that. We have, one of our coaches is a senior recruiter at Roe, another is a senior recruiter at Walmart, another is a senior recruiter at another place. There's so many different backgrounds for all of our coaches. Can you guys still see me okay?
Yes.
Okay. And so that network effect really compounds because you might be working with Jenny and there might be a great opportunity at Roe and she might talk to Dory and Dory might have a connection. And so those things happen within the fellowship. We also have an alumni network. All of the fellows who've gone through MatchDay who are now at companies can and will and do actually post their jobs to our Slack community so that other fellows might have a direct intro. We have 1,000, it was 900, now it's over 1,000 member community, founders, CEOs, hiring managers. They post jobs directly to our community. We share jobs as well. That's a benefit, and many fellows have landed jobs directly through our own internal job board. And then our partner network, which I don't talk too much about, but we do partner with companies that occasionally will want to hire a customer success manager or a program manager. That does happen, and when it does, of course, we prioritize our fellows and we try to get them through the door. But that's not something we want anybody relying on. It's kind of just a nice to have, and if it happens, that's wonderful. So I'll talk a little bit now about the fellowship and what it looks like working with us and the stages. So when you sign up with us, the first thing you're going to go through is onboarding. You'll meet with our program directors, either Chanel or Jenny. They'll go through an intake process with you, and then after that process, they will get you matched to a coach. And really, when we match you with a coach, we're looking at a few things: your personality type, your working style, like how you like to be coached, what opportunities you're likely going to be going towards. And based on all of that information, we really have a good matching process, and we try to back it with data. And also Jenny and Chanel just really have a good eye for knowing who's going to be working well with who. And of course, if it doesn't work out, you're always able to change your coach and work with another coach. But that rarely happens. Almost all fellows stick with their first coach because all of our coaches are great. So that takes me into the clarity phase, and I've talked a little bit about this in our presentation earlier. This is where you are really kind of understanding yourself, what it is you're good at, what it is you like, what it is you want to be doing, where your skills are, what those transferable skills are, and what are the roles out there that match to that. And so by the end of this phase, you have a target shortlist that's 2 to 3 roles. You have a very good understanding of what the next 2.5 months are going to look like, and you have a clear direction. And that is a very, very important foundational step because it'll keep you focused. You'll have a clear accountability structure, you'll have clear milestones, and you'll be on your way to making progress. And typically by the end of this phase, like fellows just have a huge relief. Like they go in kind of having no idea where they're going to even start, what's out there. And by the end of this phase, they just feel like a huge relief that they do have the skills, that they're in good hands, and that there's a clear direction and structure for them moving forward. The second piece is the confidence building phase, and this is where you start to build confidence in your new direction, in yourself, in your assets. Like I mentioned, you'll work on the 3 phases of building your resume, building your LinkedIn, and building your narrative arc. So all of those things work together. You're speaking about them confidently, and you have everything you need to be successful navigating the job search. You'll have an accountability structure in place, so you're getting the number of applications out, getting the number of networking outreaches out every week, staying on track, and really having the momentum start to build up in this phase, which in my eyes, momentum and confidence go hand in hand. The third phase is conversion, and this is where you're getting interviews and you're really feeling confident going into an interview. So that includes making sure you're prepared for every interview before you go in it, having live mock interviews one-on-one with your coach. They will be able to help you simulate the situation you might go through, questions you might be asked, making sure you're avoiding red flags. Let's say you have an interview that doesn't go well, being able to review that, go over it, come up with a game plan to fix it. But really our goal is when you get an interview, it's time to nail it. And that's the most important piece. Is every interview is, we treat it like it's the World Cup and it's time to score. So you'll have a lot of support in this part of the process, and you'll also learn a lot too. These are skills you will carry with you for the rest of your career, and unfortunately no one's kind of taught us these things, so super high value part of the fellowship here. And the money maker part of this is the negotiation strategy. So when you do get an offer, you're going to go through negotiation principles and tactics where you'll learn that with your coach, and they'll actually handhold you through the negotiation process. Almost all of our fellows negotiate when they get an offer. I don't think most fellows don't take the first offer they get. They usually bump it up, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jenny, but the average bump up's about 10 to 20%. We've recently seen somebody negotiate their offer up $50,000, I think from $120,000 to $170,000. So massive value gain from this piece alone, and it's a skill you'll be able to use for the rest of your career as well. And then 90 days from signing up and starting the fellowships, you will graduate and you will become an alumni. And what that means is you'll get continued access to our community, our job board, our resources, one-on-one coaching as needed for when you're, potentially going to be having a promotion coming up or working through a workplace challenge. And some of our fellows use it for kind of like 90-day success. So, in that first 90 days, they want to really jump into the team and do a good job and set everything up so they're successful. And so we also do support that as well in our fellowship. Let's talk about some of the reviews. I think now we have over 30 Trustpilot reviews, all 5-star, 1 4-star. And most people are just super, super happy with the quality of the fellowship, the things they learn. And I think it's just a testament to the quality of the coaches that we have on our team and the level of investment we really make in you and your success. And all of these are available online. You can just look up MatchDay Trustpilot. You can see all of those reviews on there. And so that gets me to the last piece, and this is something that you would set up a call with SE to go over. But that's, what's the actual investment? So you've invested in your career, you've invested in your degree, you've spent probably $50,000 to $100,000 getting your nursing degree. and it's allowed you to start your career, to make an income, to work clinically. And that was an investment that you made. Think of MatchDay as another investment. And really, it's the investment in getting your foot in the door to start a new career, so that you're getting experience, that you're learning something new, and that you're earning along the way. One of the things that was my mission when we started MatchDay was that we didn't want people going back to school and getting an MBA, because a lot of my friends were going to do that and spending $100,000 in 2+ years of their time to get another degree. And in that time, they're not earning money, they're not getting experience, and then they still have to learn how to navigate the job search after that. So the value of MatchDay is helping you get your foot in the door as quickly as possible and earning as much money as possible. So with that and the quality of everything in the program, our 3-month fellowship tuition is $6,000. So before you gasp and run out of the room for air, take a minute to let that sink in with all of the value we just shared with you here today. Most fellows are landing a job at around $112,000. They're bumping up their salaries 10 to 20%, and they're landing a job within typically 88 days. So even if we helped you land a job 1 month or 2 months faster, the investment more than pays for itself, and I'm fully confident this will pay for itself long after your first role working with us. So the next step from here, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a second. So the next step from here is, if you're interested, Essie will be sharing her link if she hasn't already shared that. And you can book a call with Essie to go over the program, answer your questions, answer any lingering questions you might have. We do have financing available, so that if that is something you want to consider or something you want to do, we do have that. There are payment plans as low as around $300 a month, so you can explore that with Essie as well. We know that you're working a job, and maybe $6,000 isn't always doable right up front, but most people with working with Essie find a way to make it work. And we always try our best that if you're really interested, if you really want to do this, we do our best to make sure that money isn't a barrier and we can support you in some way, whether it's through financing or another creative option. So with that said, I think we can wrap up here today. Essie, if you want to jump in and share your link or any other last words, please feel free to do that.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
I turned my video on, but my beautiful background went off, so I guess I can still share my video, but you'll see my normal background. But I did want to hop on here really quick one more time, I promise. I did share the link again. I noticed earlier it didn't actually didn't show like the hyperlink, but now it should have. Should be fairly easy. Also, again, my email. If you have lingering questions, can't find a time that works, are scared, send me an email. We can always kind of communicate that way too. But before we wrap up, almost addressing again the elephant in the room, I always like to acknowledge that, the feelings that come up at this stage. There is probably excitement, but there's also likely hesitation. I think that's very, very normal at the end of the day, that as human beings, that's how we operate. So kind of bringing back again, specifically for nurses, and I love that Rami brought that up, that he really feels for nurses, and I do too. I think nursing oftentimes can become, your entire world. I know it sounds dramatic, but, working very, very long shifts, constantly putting other people first, carrying an incredible amount of responsibility, and often running on very little physical or emotional capacity. And after enough time, it can become difficult to almost imagine yourself doing anything else or feeling like, is this possible? And so if there is a part of you that feels that kind of excited, but also there's another part that feels, it sounds great, but how could I actually do this? I just want to let you know that you are not alone. That's probably the most common conversation I have on a daily basis. So I always encourage looking and just inviting you into look beyond on how you are feeling in this current moment or today, and sort of what Rami had brought up earlier, that perfect day. You use that as fuel. So when you imagine yourself in your perfect situation, and in your perfect environment, how do you actually feel on the day-to-day basis? What do you want to see? What's the compensation you're making? Making a decision, whether it is simply just utilizing the tools that Jenny shared tonight. If it is sending me a quick email with a question, if it's actually booking a call, looking for further coaching and support, making that decision from that future version of yourself. And like we've been talking about that, you absolutely deserve it. It is very much possible. You're not asking for the moon here. And again, meaningful decisions rarely start with feeling very comfortable or having 100% certainty. Typically that growth and evolvement and that next phase in our careers happens when we step into something that is likely going to be quite uncomfortable. But that's how we defeat the discomfort, because we start taking the steps and we finally get on the other side of it. And yeah, so just wanted to share that. I again, it's easier said than done to not let fear hold you back, but at the same time, you probably have a lot of proof behind you too that you've done it before, and certainly you can do it again.
Absolutely. Thanks for touching on that, Essie, and I agree. It's a lot to take in, and it's a big decision for a lot of us, and it's not something to be taken lightly, right? It's a big decision. And, you know, I think the real question for you to think about is, am I ready for this? And you know, am I ready to overcome that fear? Because the fear is very natural, and almost every fellow that comes in starts off with some fear. And as he's having these conversations every day, and we're very aware of all those different fears. But at the end of the day, you have to remember, you have one life to live. You have one career, or not really one career. You can have many careers, but you know, it's kind of what's the right word I'm looking at? Opportunity cost. What is the cost of staying where you're at right now and staying there for another year, another 2 years, another 5 years? What comes with that? Really being honest with yourself, because sometimes we just don't even want to look in the mirror and ask ourselves that question. It's like, it's not a comfortable conversation, but change and you know, if you're ready to confront yourself and be honest, and say, like, do I really want to be here 5 years from now? If I don't change something now, is it ever going to change? And that you will get that answer. If you are really looking for that answer and you're ready, and you want to just take the dive and say, okay, well, I don't want to be here 5 years from now, and I don't want to wish that I had done something different. You know, the best time to start is now. You know, I always say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So if you've got a goal, and if you know you don't want to be where you're at a year from now, or even 2 years from now, you just have to kind of show up in the mirror and ask yourself that question. And if you get that nudge kind of like in your heart where you're just like, you know, I got to do it, you'll know. If you really listen to yourself, you'll know. And that's where, you know, we come in and we can help you get there. So with that, Essie, if you have any last thoughts.
Just a really quick add on to what you were just saying is that sometimes we mistake that sort of fear as a sign of that I'm not supposed to do this, where in reality it's quite the opposite. And we expect it, and I just always encourage, like, don't try to run away from it, lean into it, and we expect it, we welcome it, we know that that's part of it. So coaches, Jenny, they're so wonderful with all of our fellows with the good, bad, the ugly.
Yes. You're on mute, Jenny.
I just echoing, even when the fellowship starts, I will say usually sessions 1 and 2, I hear the statement, I'm nervous, I'm scared I made the wrong decision, but session 3 on is usually when you start to see that shift, like, wow, things are clicking, I'm setting things in motion. And then that tree statement really resonated with me, Rami, because I usually hear at the conclusion, I wish I joined this sooner.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yeah, so you guys will be in good hands with us, but before you come to us and work with us, obviously you have to kind of, have that conversation with yourself and feel like you're not you don't have to be ready, but you just kind of have to know that you're willing, I think is the right word. So, have a great night, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. We will send this in an email, so you will get the call. You will also get the slides and the docs that Jenny shared today. And if you haven't booked a call with Essie, you can do that. The calendar is in the chat right now. So it looks like her link is in there. And if you have not done that through there, you can just send Essie an email through the emails you've got from us. So, all right, everybody, have a good night.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.